You are now tuned into the Victims Advocate podcast with the Victims Advocate himself, Brandon Stein. Let's get to it.
Welcome to the Victims Advocate podcast, where we explore current events, crime, security, and insights into advocacy for victims of violent crime.
Again, viewer discretion is advised here as jury selection is set to begin tomorrow in the sex trafficking trial of Sean Diddy Combs, with testimony slated to start the fall.
Welcome to the Victims Advocate podcast with Brandon Stein. My name is Brandon Stein, and I am the Victims Advocate. So now what we have going on is the week is here. The P. Diddy trial is underway. Now, like any trial that's before a jury, the first thing and the most important part of a trial, as many attorneys will tell you, is jury selection. Now, Diddy, as you may know, he's been indicted and he's being charged on federal sex trafficking allegations. Now, some of the allegations that the prosecution is putting forth is that he abused, threatened, coerced women into drug-fueled sex orgies. Now, on top of that, he threatened them into silence as well. Now, the defense in a case like this, what we do know is that they rejected a plea deal. And in rejecting the plea deal, they've also maintained Diddy's innocence. So there has been no consideration to accepting any plea deal, let alone any plea deal that takes on prison time. Because what we do know is in the event that a jury of his peers, of 12, comes back and finds him guilty, then the judge can impose a sentence of life in prison. So some really serious allegations, and the stakes cannot be higher. So, from the defense standpoint, obviously, the key argument that appears to be presented, or which will be presented once a jury is selected, is that all the sexual encounters are consensual. Now, obviously, there's evidence that comes into play, there's reasonable doubt, there's a burden of proof, and that's all going to be fleshed out. But priority one, the first thing that occurs in any trial is jury selection. So when you're picking a jury, what's really, really important, and in a case like this, tantamount to success certainly for the defense, but maybe even more so for the prosecution, is that you need to find jurors that are unbiased. You need to find jurors that can be fair and impartial and base their decisions solely and exclusively on the evidence. Because when it comes down to it, a case with the notoriety and publicity like this one, you need to somehow find 12 jurors that either have not heard about it, don't really have an opinion on it, and maybe have been living under a rock. So really, that's going to take a very, very large jury pool to try to sift through and decipher who is the most fair and unbiased and impartial, and that's who comes into the jury. Now, what we do know is there are several hundred prospective jurors being considered for a trial of this magnitude. Initially, these jurors, before the attorneys even got to questions, they were shown a list of more than 100 places and people whose names or information may come up in the trial. This includes celebrities that we all know: Kanye West, Michael B. Jordan, Mike Myers, none of whom have been implicated in this, but in a sense they may come up, and if you have certain jurors that either heard of them or have strong opinions or viewpoints for or against any of those people or those places, you may want to get those jurors out. So when we look at the jury process and the jury selection process, for this case or any case, what's very, very important are a few things. One, and most important, you find a jury that is fair and impartial, and you make sure that whatever jury gets selected, you have to ask the magic question to every single juror: are you capable, and you're willing, and you took an oath to base your decision solely and exclusively on the evidence? Yes, of course. Meaning that it won't be evidence plus. You won't base your decision on the evidence plus maybe a prior belief or view you have on P. Diddy, or his music, or hip-hop music, or you've read some of these allegations, you've Googled some things, which is a big no-no, of course. So those are questions that have to be asked to every single prospective juror, because when you're going through the jury selection process, what's also very, very important is you address some fundamental issues that may come up in the trial. Now, you're not allowed to what's called pre-try the case, and that's an objection that can be raised, and it's raised quite frequently in the event that a lawyer gets up there and tries to maybe weave in their theory of the case, start arguing some evidence, talks about some witnesses, maybe it's intentional, maybe it's inadvertent, but you're not allowed to pre-try the case. So when you're talking to jurors, you have to find a way to articulate the issues that may be presented at trial to them without actually going in or even commenting on the evidence. So, for example, if you have a car accident case, you may want to broach a subject of who here has been involved in a car accident, who here has had a lawsuit filed against them. And maybe there are some jurors who have or have not, but those who have, you want to really hone in on those jurors and ask them questions related to their ability to be fair and impartial. How was their experience? Did they have a successful outcome? Do they believe that the system is crooked? Do they believe that lawyers file too many lawsuits? I mean, there's a lot of other collateral questions that could come into play in a case like that. So when you're dealing with a case like this, with sex trafficking and high profile, celebrity, in the news, month after month, when you're dealing with P. Diddy, who's one of the, maybe the biggest music entertainment mogul out there over the past 2 to 3 decades, it's hard not to have an opinion on it or even hear of it. So when we look to that, what's really, really important is when you're picking a jury in a case like that, I mean, what you can't do is be blind to the fact that there are jurors out there who probably heard of it, and you gotta get them out. You gotta get them out as best as you can. You want to ask them about their views on sex, orgies, sex parties, hip hop music. There are videos related to abuse, physical abuse. The big video that's going to be presented by the prosecution seems to be the video that circulated from 2016 with Diddy and the name is escaping me, Cassandra something, where he beat her, he abused her. It's in the hallway by the elevator of a hotel. So when you have salacious testimony and information and evidence like that, it's something that you must address, you must try to extinguish and get those jurors out who are, very, very passionate one way or the other, and make no mistakes about it. The defense is going to want jurors there and jurors sitting on the jury pool that maybe are hip hop fans, that maybe are of a younger demographic who grew up listening to P. Diddy, Notorious B.I.G., Jay-Z, the whole hip hop generation, from the 90s into the 2000s. They want those people who may sympathize with Diddy and may find it maybe more acceptable to have these types of parties, these crazy parties, and that all these victims may be looking for a cash grab. And that's what the defense is going to be claiming, so that's what they want to gravitate to. What the prosecution may want, or maybe an older demographic, maybe baby boomers or someone around that age who doesn't understand the hip-hop culture, who doesn't understand that generation, who doesn't like that music, who may or may not know who Diddy is, or may have just heard bad things about Diddy. So they want people who are going to be sitting on the jury who are already leaning one way. And make no mistakes about it, I don't care what a lawyer says, they are always looking for jurors that are going to benefit their side. Because when it comes to jury selection, there is no more important part of the process. When you're picking a jury, You're picking the random people who are going to decide your case. And I don't care how much of a silver tongue you have and that you can argue your way and sell ice to an Eskimo. If you have jurors that have a predisposed mindset for or against you, it's going to be really, really hard to get, to sway them. Because ultimately what my approach is when I'm advocating for victims, when I'm trying cases, is, hey, I know I'm not going to get every juror on my side. But what's crucial and what's really, really important are those jurors that are on my side. They have to be the most boisterous. They have to be the most stubborn. They have to be the most bold. They have to be the leaders. So when they're back there in that deliberation room and they're arguing and trying to determine the fate of my client, they're the ones who have the voices who are going to carry the day. Because when we're looking at this Diddy trial, that defense needs those types of jurors. Because when you have a jury of 12, and probably a couple of alternates, but a jury of 12 that's going to be back there, you heard the movie 12 Angry Men or whatever the heck it is, runaway jury, those arguments are real. And I've heard, depending upon the way the courtroom is situated, I've heard jurors yell and argue, and they get passionate. They take it seriously, and they're going to take this seriously if they're selected, when they're selected. So you need to make sure, if you're the defense, that you have a handful out of 12. That's all you need, maybe even a little less. That may be the foreperson, that may be leaders in that room, so that the voice that they're using in that room are the arguments that they're using in that room are the arguments and the voice that you're making at trial. And if you're the defense and a core theory of yours is, hey, cash grab, hey, this was all consensual, it's not federal trafficking, then you need jurors who buy that and can sell it and will dig their heels and not back down. Same thing for the prosecution, except on the flip side of things. So it'll be interesting to see how things play out, and we'll talk to you later.
That's a wrap. Thanks for joining us on the Victims Advocate podcast with Brandon Stein, and we'll see you on the next one. Be sure to follow us on Instagram at The Victim Advocate, on YouTube at The Victims Advocate, and visit our website at victimadvocate.com.